Good morning, everyone, and welcome into another edition of the Roll Jays podcast brought to you by Pixel Fire Marketing inside the Pyramid Contractor Studio. I'm Jimmie Allen. That's Casey Matthews. The slacker at the bottom of your screen is Alex Drake. Creighton knocks off Purdue 93-87 in a scrimmage inside the CHI Health Center. We're going to talk about how much it actually meant, what we saw from the Jays, and who impressed us more than anything. I don't know about you guys, but for me, I came away from that scrimmage thinking that Jackson McAndrew is going to make a bigger impact this season than I think we originally anticipated a true freshman coming in and making. He looked incredibly smooth. He looked comfortable in this offense and obviously hit a couple key buckets. Casey, what did you think of the true freshman?
Yeah, I was impressed. I mean, I've been pretty high on Jackson for quite a while. I think he doesn't play like a freshman, and that he didn't seem to be sped up. I think when you watch him, you could tell he's got an incredible basketball IQ. He had a really nice offensive rebound putback that I felt like in that situation was the right play for him to make, but I don't think many true freshmen make that play. I think they're more focused on getting back and not getting beat, because that's probably what they're hearing in practice.
Especially guys who hang around the perimeter at that size too.
100%, but I think he saw the opportunity and he went for it. I liked his shot selection. I thought they came in the flow and the rhythm of the offense, and they just looked natural and not like he was a freshman just trying to figure out how to score. I think he's going to be really good. I think we all kind of anticipate that eventually he would be really good, but didn't know what to expect this year. I think it's fair to say, if he plays this year and doesn't redshirt, which I don't think he would, that he will be really good. So I'm excited.
Yeah, Casey, I remember, obviously we were sitting up in the hockey box, and you called out a play that was designed to be a throwback to him, and I don't remember who exactly was getting yelled at, but I mean, they had a concerted effort to get him involved. I was impressed by Jackson. I actually pointed out that exact play that you just talked about on Blue Jay Overtime, just because I played that position in college, and I know as a freshman I would not have made that play, even at a much lower level. I was really impressed with Jackson because I expected to see a little bit more struggle from a physicality standpoint, especially after some of the things we've heard from the staff, but he fit in very well. And not to take shine away from him, but Ty Davis impressed me a ton, especially running the point. And aside from Ty Davis, just the overall ball handling, being more than two guys, being able to bring up the ball against a Purdue team that was pressuring the ball almost the full length of the court to start the game. So Jackson McAndrews, Ty Davis really impressed me the most, but Pop Isaacs had a quiet, I think it was, what he finished with, 16 or 20?
18, I think.
Yeah, but it was quiet. He wasn't hunting shots like I kind of expected him to. Just all around impressed with how well that team performed against, apart from Zach Edey, pretty much the same team back that competed for a national title.
Sorry, yeah. Kalk finished with 18. Pop finished with 24.
I was going to say, I thought it was 24.
Yeah, and the other thing, and we've seen, and we're obviously going to talk about Stephen Ashworth in a minute, but we talked about his struggles a year ago at the beginning, and I think that's the one takeaway that I had from a negative connotation around the scrimmage was between Pop and Stephen, they had 7 turnovers combined, and that's something with your two primary ball handlers having that high of a number, and it is a scrimmage, it is the first game of the season, but I don't think anybody looked at the way that game felt as a game that didn't matter, right? I mean, from either side. I mean, Matt Painter was trying to win that game at the end of the game. He had the Big Ten preseason Player of the Year, treating it like it was the Big Ten championship game when Braden Smith goes off for 31. And in those you're going to see a lot of those type of games and a lot of those type of atmospheres this season. And I want to see two guys that are going to be the primary ball handlers step up a little bit more and be a little more careful with the basketball.
Yeah, I mean, I see what you're saying. I also think a 2-to-1 assist to turnover ratio.
Pretty good. Still pretty good. Yeah, I'll give you that.
And I think too is like one of the things I loved, and Alex, you hit on this with Pop. We were talking about Pop. Is I was really looking forward to seeing him in terms of shot selection and how he played in the offense, because he's been a fantastic player his entire career, but his efficiency has been probably one of the knocks on his game. When I saw him the other night, I was just impressed with, yes, his shot selection, but also his ability to get in the lane and make plays for other people. I think one of the things that we lacked last year, and really have since, obviously with Nemhard being gone, is someone that can beat their defender one-on-one and that can get to the rim or make a play for somebody else. Not to say that Trey couldn't get by somebody. Trey had a tendency, because he's such a good mid-range jump shooter, to stop and shoot that mid-range when he had space. And I think one of the things in this offense is if you can hold on to that ball a little bit longer, you get caulk on some of those lobs, you get those spray threes when people collapse. And so I thought Pop did a really good job in that area. I was very encouraged there. Steven looked so much more comfortable, and he just looked like a guy that, like, not to say it's his team, because I think we don't necessarily have a guy that's their team, but I think it was pretty clear that Steven is prepared and ready and wanting to take on more of that leadership role on the team. So I think that was really neat to see. I mean, sure, can you pinpoint on some of those turnovers? Yeah, but again, I think when you're 2-1, you can live with it, especially since I didn't think any of the turnovers were really just like egregious.
I'll agree with that as well.
So yeah, it was good. It was good. And what you were saying about Ty, didn't necessarily score it, but played well. He was solid. I think it's what you want from a guy in that position. Again, playing against a team that, I know it's not the whole team, I get it, but that's a Purdue program that was in the national championship game last year. So they kind of know how to hoop. So
and have the Big Ten preseason player of the year as well.
Yeah.
And kind of touching off on the turnover thing too, Casey. You and I have talked about it a lot, and I learned a lot the year I was down there. There are good turnovers and bad turnovers, right? Like, there's not a lot of those turnovers weren't live ball that led to runouts. They were putting pressure on the defense. A couple of them were dead balls, and dead balls to me are basically a missed shot that goes out of bounds, right? You get to set your defense, all that stuff. Obviously, you want to take care of the ball, but I did not come away from that game worried about the turnovers. And you talked about Pop's ability to get into the lane. That floater was huge, and it will be huge this year. But you guys, we're leaving out a guy, and partly because he didn't impact the box score a ton, but I came away really impressed by Jimmie Neal. His ability to get into the lane a couple of times and create for specifically for the bigs, and he had a couple of kickouts that created great ball movement. He didn't play great, but he showed some things where I think, again, just missed it a little bit last year. And now you have two guys that I think can really attack the rim, which will free up guys like Steven and Isaac for more open threes. And then if you have Jackson McAndrews growing throughout the season like we think he can, I mean, this team just feels slightly more complete from being able to do things at all three levels, and hopefully with a deeper bench.
Yeah, and I think that was my biggest takeaway of the whole night, is how much the floor kind of opened up. And anytime that Ryan Kalkbrenner rolled to the rim, it felt like he was taking two and sometimes three guys with him, and how much space there was out on the floor, and guys that you felt could make the defense pay for trying to pin him down or triple team him and take your most valuable asset out of it. And I'm really more intrigued to find out what this offense looks like closer to Big East season, because if you could put that on film and you can make guys accountable to cover the entire floor, and you can start getting Ryan Kalkbrenner in more one-on-one situations, or even maybe misplace a defender on a switch or something, and have 2-3 guys that can absolutely make you pay for it outside of the boundaries as well as inside of the paint, that gets really scary in a Greg McDermott offense.
Yeah, the one thing I'll add to that too, Jimmie, and I don't know how much it played into it on Saturday night, but we talked about it at halftime. That is definitely a clash of styles trying to get to the same goal offensively. Defensively, I think they're wildly different. just across the Big Ten, you see guys double and triple bigs all over. It's rarely one-on-one in that league. Very few teams in that conference, in my opinion, shoot the ball as well as Creighton. I didn't see Purdue make a ton of adjustments. So I do have questions getting to Big East play. Is
Yeah.
Ryan Kalkbrenner going to see that nearly as much? Or is it just going to be kind of like it was last year?
Yeah. I think that covers a few things there when you're talking about Big East versus this one. One, Purdue didn't really scout this game. So they
That's a good
really
point.
they kind of just played with their concepts. The other thing is Purdue plays two bigs. You won't see that in the Big East that much. Maybe you can argue Xavier. If they're healthy, they'll have their two bigs in. But for the most part, you're not going to see two bigs. And so I think that becomes interesting defensively, because that's what's really going to drive your lineups. So how much has Isaac improved in moving his feet? If Isaac can guard the perimeter, then yes, you would like him to be on the floor offensively because he would space the floor. Jason spent a lot of time this summer working on his 3-point jump shot. Didn't hit one the other night, but he should be nothing but confident based on we all should know your confidence should come from the work that you've put in.
Right.
So he's put in a lot of that work this summer. He needs to get out there and hit one, and he'll relax. And if he can do that, then I think you'll see the value of him increase, because we do know defensively he can guard different positions, and he would be something that you would want to be on the floor defensively. That's my biggest question with Jackson is defense. I think he was really good, and I thought his post defense, I'm drawing a blank on the name, but his post defense was really good the other night, and so that's encouraging. But again, how much is he going to be guarding the post in Big East play? So there's still so much. There's still so much, but like that the 3-4 spot is interesting. You know, just because you have a lot of names doesn't mean you have a lot of depth, right?
Yep.
So I think we got to remember, like, depth is only depth when it's productive. And so if you don't have production coming from the 3 and the 4 spot, that's tough. That's tough, because I don't think that the big fella, Steven, Pop, are going to be able to score enough points every night to beat Big East teams. And so you're going to have some production from that 3-4, which I fully expect to have, not trying to sound negative at all. But just looking at the other night and looking at the box score, you got to have some more.
Casey, I want to back up a little bit about something you said. You said Jackson played pretty good post defense.
Yes.
In your opinion, I obviously have an opinion on this. I think we're probably going to be in agreement. Is it going to be an easier transition for him defensively in the post or on the perimeter?
Well, I mean, naturally, I would think post, just because he's so long, and that's what he did a really good job of using his length. It was Trey Kaufman-Renn that he was guarding there.
Yeah.
He used his length to not allow Trey to get into his body. If Trey can get into his body, that becomes a problem. So he used his length, kept him there. Forced a bad shot. I think the other interesting thing is, because Jackson is more of a perimeter player, he probably is more familiar with guarding some of those perimeter actions. But I would say right now, gosh, I still think he's probably going to be a little bit better post-wise, just in using his length. And
I agree. And that's probably what he did more in high school too, right? Like more consistently guarding the other guys' bigs.
He's so long. He's so long.
That point, he probably wasn't covering too many. He probably wasn't covering too many guys with the athleticism that he's going to see in the Big East out on the perimeter in high school either. So I think that makes it more of an easier transition to cover inside as well.
I think the thing, guys, too, we've got to remember here. Now, obviously, it's November 1st, right? So, like, who knows? But the one thing about the league, beyond the skilled players, is there's so many good coaches. So when you play a game and you're scouting and you're preparing, like, you're not going to create a game plan to attack Ryan Kalkbrenner. You're probably not going to create a game plan where you're going to go after and try to take advantage of Pop, or like you're going to try to find the weaknesses. And as of right now, if Jackson's in the game, he's going to have to be tabbed as the weakness defensively. So
yeah, you're going to try and put him, even Steven, you're going to try and put those guys in blenders.
Steve, I think Steven gets a bad rap defensively. I actually think he's okay.
No, I agree, but out of that starting five, that's who you're going after, right? Like that's who you're attacking on
and if Jackson's in our starting five, then something's probably gone wrong. Yeah. And that's not a knock on Jackson. He's going to be a phenomenal player. But when you have your Jasons and you got Mason, you got guys that have been here, chances are they're going to end up being your starting four. And then if Jackson is going to play this year, then he'll definitely get some minutes in the rotation. I mean, he's so good. I don't know how you keep him off the floor.
Jimmie froze. So
Jimmie froze. All right, this is finally our time.
Any issue?
Yeah. You froze again, Jimmie. So we'll keep going. Casey,
there he's back.
I was gonna say the one thing I was impressed with the most about Jackson wasn't even anything offensively. He was impressive offensively, but there was that switch play defensively where he was he was on Kaufman-Renn and then switched over to Fletcher Lawyer and basically just took one of the best guards in the Big Ten and ran him out of bounds and took him completely out of the play. So it's one of those things that, he it looks like he could do everything offensively, but I think for a guy that's coming in as highly touted as a shooter, as an offensive threat as he is, if he can make up those grounds from a defensive standpoint this quickly, I think the sky's the limit this season for him.
It's going to be about communication, right? So if he can learn to talk and communicate, I think he'll be fine. It's funny you say that, Jimmie. I was really impressed too with Pop. Pop comes from Texas Tech, where their style of defense is to not give up the middle and force everything to the baseline. They do. Just some of their ball screen coverages are different than the way that we play them. Obviously, with Calk, we just play drop. So to see him talk and move and the way he did was really good. I think there are a few times where they were calling out switch where it was a little bit late, and I felt like he recognized it, and got back into the play. Like there were just times where I was really impressed because that's a very hard adjustment to go from no middle to forcing middle, and forcing all the action to the big guy is difficult. And so I was really impressed with the way he played there too. So.
Yeah, there's a play that stands out in the first half, and I don't know if you guys were on the elevator. And it was
we were on the elevator for like 30 seconds out.
You
keep saying this like
bigger deal than it was.
No.
Like we were taking an elevator tour of the CHI.
No, I just don't know if you guys were sitting next to me for this play, and it was nothing spectacular, but it just showed me a slightly different level of fight for this team that I didn't see last year. And John Bishop had a great call on it. Just a loose ball. Everybody got on the floor. We ended up not winning it, but everybody got on the floor, and we still didn't give up a layup. Like everybody was on the floor, off the floor. A couple of the freshmen were in on it, and I don't remember over the last couple of years ever seeing more than a couple of guys all legitimately dive. We've seen guys fall on the ball, right? But all these guys were diving across the floor, wrestling for that loose ball. And then they were back up in the play and didn't give up a bucket. And that just showed to me, maybe it's some of the transfers, maybe it's some of the freshmen, but this team, it seems to have just a little bit more fight in the dirty areas than they've had in the past. And that stood out a lot to me. Yeah, it did. That play specifically.
Maybe I'm taking that a little too much on the chin there for my time. I mean, it was certainly great to see. I don't know though, man. I don't know. I feel like I'm not saying I don't know. I feel like we've been that way. I do. I mean, my first thought goes to Baylor in the NCAA tournament, jumping over the the chairs and getting back into play on the loose ball.
Yeah, I think I disagree as well, by the way.
Yeah, I mean,
no, I'm not saying that we haven't had.
Alex, but you are, man. You're kind of saying we're soft, and I don't know if I like that.
I've never said we were soft.
Why are you throwing the Creighton Blue Jays under the bus? I will give him this, Casey. I think we were in the elevator for that moment because I don't remember that happening.
That will now be dubbed as the elevator play. Okay, we're just gonna call that the elevator play.
All five guys hit the floor. They were all back up. They were communicating. Jason Green ended up on Fletcher Lloyd or Braden Smith. I don't remember. It was just something that I'm not used to seeing out of that team.
while you're throwing everybody under the bus, who's the last one to hit the floor?
I think it was Steven, but I think Steven hit the floor twice.
Of course.
I think Steven started it.
It is the Roll Jays podcast brought to you by Pixel Fire Marketing inside the Pyramid Contractor Studio. Just a reminder, if you want to help donate to the Creighton Birdcage Club, it is the NIL collective for the university. If you want to help your favorite athlete along the way financially, you could do so by scanning the QR code in your top right corner. It also benefits this podcast as well. If you like the coverage that we're giving you here on the Roll Jays podcast, make a donation to Creighton's NIL collective, the Birdcage, to benefit your favorite athlete as well as your favorite podcast. Guys, I know everybody's up against a little bit, so we'll get out of here on this. The season is a week away from the official start. Alex, we'll start with you. What do you want to see the most out of this starting five on Wednesday?
Ooh. I want to see them get Jimmie Neal a little bit more involved offensively, and I want to see. Mac talked about it a little bit in the post game. I want to see him and Pop be a little bit more defensive stoppers, like they kind of talked about them being. Obviously, Braden Smith's a great player, but Mac talked a little bit about Jimmie Neal coming in as an offensive player and trying to teach him that he can be an absolute defensive stopper. So I just want to see a little bit more out of him on offense, and I want to see him really buy into that defensive edge.
Casey?
For me, I just want to see domination, and let me kind of explain why. Besides the obvious,
because it's Rio Grande Valley.
Yeah, well, yes, but I think we have some games here early where we should be able to put teams away early, and I think when you can do that, it allows a couple things. It allows Mac to get creative on lineups and play some more lineups that he might want to see in live game action. It allows some of the young guys to play, which I always would tell some of our guys, like, hey, you can put teams away and give some of these young guys that never get to play an opportunity to play. And I think that's always fun for them. Two is it's going to keep early season minutes off the legs of guys like Kalkbrenner, Pop, Steven, guys that aren't going to get as much rest, and in turn allows your Fred Kings to play and get more acclimated to gameplay. So that's what I want to see, is just, if we're going to be as good as we think we can be, you got to be able to put teams away early. And when the skill level is no knock on these teams that are coming in, they're good teams, they're trying to win. The skill level should be much higher in a much higher league, and so you should be able to put teams away early and work on some other things. So that's what I would like to see.
Are we good to make the announcement, Casey?
Putting me on the spot.
Or should we hold off on that for right now? I'm
going to say, because I don't know what you're talking about, hold off on the announcement, and then we'll hit it. Maybe we'll do like a special one.
Okay. Well, we may or may not have some exciting news coming down the pipe here on the Roll Jays podcast. Stay tuned.
I'm excited to hear about it.
Yeah.
You and me both.
It would be what we were texting about yesterday.
Okay. Yeah. Let's wait till we have 100% certainty on that.
Okay.
My fault.
No, I didn't know what else you thought it would be. So I'm excited to hear what that.
I was like, Jimmie, man, you got a lot of kids, man. You got a lot of kids.
No. Casey and I are not adopting children together either.
I got 2 and I'm done.
Yes, I got 3 and we're tapping out. Alex is joining the party soon enough.
You guys can adopt me.
Yeah, you're expensive. The thing I'm most excited about is to see how this team plays in transition. I think they're going to be more athletic than the opposition. I think that's not necessarily the hottest take in the world. And I want to see if Pop Isaacs could take advantage of the ability to get out and run with some athletic players around him and play in a full court sense in Greg McDermott's offense. But this has been the Roll Jays podcast, brought to you by Pixel Fire Marketing inside the Pyramid Contractor Studio. We'll be back ahead of the Rio Grande Valley game, as well as a show the day after. We're going to be coming to you live the day after every game this season, and we'll have an announcement or two next week. So hopefully you can stick around and join us here on the Roll Jays podcast. We'll see you next week. Go Jays.